Almost there. And we are here. I'm back with my friend Toby. How you doing, buddy? It's good to see you.
Doing well, sir. How about yourself?
Yeah, as usual, I'm doing good. Thank you. As usual, we're having a good conversation before we start recording. So I said, wait a minute, let's stop. Let's start recording because otherwise we're going to talk for an hour and then we're going to go, okay, what do we talk about now when we start recording? But one thing I wanted to start off with is we were talking about how I took a break from social media because I like to do these 30-day challenges. Last year, one thing I did is I cut out coffee for a month just to see what would happen. And I'm not a coffee addict. I'm not drinking 10 cups a day. I was just having 1 or 2 cups in the morning and that's it. But I just felt that it was becoming too habitual, meaning I would wake up, I have a cup of coffee, I get my day going, you get a little bit of a kick from the caffeine. It just became something that was way too habitual. So I wanted to see how I would perform, see what would change if I cut it out. So after 30 days, I just kept going because I felt great. I was like, I wake up now with natural energy. My sleep is better. So let me just keep this thing going. And I ended up cutting it out for probably 3 months at least. And then I introduced it back in just to see what the effect would be. Would it be negative? And turns out 1 cup is fine. So if I have 1 cup in the morning, it's not really a negative impact. Sometimes I have a cup an hour before training, as long as I'm training earlier in the day because I don't want to train too late because I'm very sensitive to caffeine. But it was an interesting experiment. And then earlier this year, I cut out social media for a couple of weeks. And like I was telling you, I just became way more productive in other things. I mean, I read 7 books in 3 weeks. And I don't think I read 7 books last year because I was just focused on other things. And now I'm in this habit of just being a voracious reader. There's not much to watch on TV right now. So it's like, look, okay, I can either do another rerun of 24, which I've seen several times. I can go revisit season 4 of 24 for the 10th time, or I can read a book that I've never read before. And now sometimes I watch TV if I'm hanging out with my wife or we're eating dinner or something like that. But now, now when that's over, I just turn it off and I'm reading all night.
Yeah. I
So
mean,
go ahead. Sorry.
no, I'm sorry. You go.
No, you go. You go. I wanted to give you a chance to respond. I'll just keep.
Okay.
Wes.
Okay. So this is what I want to say. Well, I mean, I drew a blank. So you asked me a question since I drew a blank.
Yeah.
Sorry, that happened.
That's okay. I'll just start talking again and let's get your thoughts going. But yeah, so I cut out the social media for a couple of weeks and I was just way more productive. And I don't think there's anything bad about social media. I think it's all about how you use it. I mean, I often hear people complain. They go, people are so narcissistic on Instagram. All they do is post pictures of themselves and all that. And I go, honestly, you don't have to follow those people if it bothers you. Why are you following people when you find their content irritating? Just unfollow them and follow people that are putting out stuff that's interesting to you. Because when I look at my feed, I see a lot of people that are really enthusiastic about working out, that are putting out health and fitness information, that are nonprofits doing incredible work. So it's pretty inspiring. I mean, it can be depressing too because you see so much suffering out there. But at the same time,
No, I'm not sad to suffer, but I mean,
yeah,
I know what you mean.
yeah. So but it can also become a time waster where all of a sudden you become addicted to, okay, let me post something because I want to get positive feedback from people. And I have an addictive personality, so it's easy where if I post one of my training clips and all these people are like, oh man, that's so badass, you're so awesome, this, that, and so forth, then all of a sudden you start wanting more of that. So you go, okay, let me step it up so I can post something else. And now you start doing stuff in the gym that you normally wouldn't do just so you can record it, and post it later. So when I stopped using Instagram for a couple of weeks, I wasn't recording any of my workouts either. I cut that out. And it was interesting because my workouts became way more focused because now I'm no longer setting up a camera somewhere and trying to get that correct. Now I'm just focused on working out. And now I'm doing stuff that I'm doing for the sole purposes of my training goals, not stuff where I'm going, okay, this will look cool on Instagram and I'll get a bunch of likes and shares. So it's just interesting when you do these experiments. So now that I'm back on social media, though, I'm not going to be so focused on what I was doing before. I'm not going to be I'm going to post training clips here and there, but it's not going to be every workout anymore. It'll just be like every once in a while, hey, here's what I'm doing. I'd rather focus on just putting out content that I think is really helpful for people, that improves their state of mind, and then share causes that are important for me. I'd rather use social media for that right now.
I think that's real. I mean, I personally think there was nothing wrong with what you did before because when I looked at your social media, not only were you posting training clips and it was your actual training log, it was to
Right.
post your progress. And this is also what you do as a hobby or maybe a living, one of the two, where you just post your progress. You actually have passion for exercise and what you do. But I also knew your page wasn't only about your training progress. I saw other interviews you did about stuff that didn't have to do with exercise. I saw you post about other like atrocities that are happening in the world and other mental health and things people are struggling with.
Yeah.
So I saw your page not only as an exercise page, but you're actually one of the few exercise pages, really, or pages in general, that's really not all about them. You actually just show other people from other sides of the, in, not even fitness industry, but other industries altogether and other causes and other like other bad things, like a lot of evil out there in the world that happen to a lot of people, a lot of maybe mental and inner pain that happen to other people. We actually give them a platform to tell their story. Even like illnesses people have, not just mental but physical. I see those interviews and just immoral stuff that happens in the world, like I would hate to. I don't like saying this, but like maybe like the sex trafficking. I see those ones, and that's as evil as it gets, really.
Yeah.
Because, and we know for obvious reasons. So I see those. I'm like, you know what? This guy really wants. Is not one of those want to see the world burn. Actually, you just want. You actually are looking for a solution. You actually want to bring awareness, you know?
Yeah. I appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah, that's what I wanted to be focused on. I guess I was thinking it more from my point of view because I had a chance to do a lot of reflection when I wasn't on there. And I just wanted to ask myself those questions of what are my intentions when I do something? Am I posting training clips because I want to inspire other people? Or am I doing it because I want some kind of validation? Because I'm not in the fitness industry as a trainer anymore. I used to travel the world teaching courses. I'm still in the industry as a guy who designs nutrition supplements. That's my bread and butter right now. But so I don't get the kind of feedback I used to get, I guess is where I'm going. I used to be in front of people all the time and people would be really impressed with my abilities. And I'm not going to lie and say that I didn't like that. I mean, it wasn't the reason why I taught a course, but it was definitely icing on the cake. It was almost like you're putting on a performance, like you're a Cirque du Soleil person and you want that like wow factor, like wow, he's so strong, wow, he's so great. So I'm just trying to be honest with myself and go, why do I do what I do rather than just try to rationalize everything that I do. And I felt that I was using social media more to fill the gap that I used to get from real life feedback. And it doesn't mean that that was my only intention, but that was one of the intentions. So I have to ask myself, okay, why do I have that intention? And is that a useful intention to have? And it really isn't a useful intention. So now I'm more focused on just growing as a person. And that's why, I mean, I didn't just read 7 books in 3 weeks that are novels. I read really good books that were either autobiographies or motivational books or health related books, books that are filling my mind with knowledge and other people's thoughts so I can do some of my own introspection as well.
Yeah, I mean, number one, when you were, when you were like the fitness trainer going to seminars, impressing people with your knowledge and your abilities, I mean, I remember watching back in the day when I was like a teenager, like watching early YouTube, reading early articles of your work, and that's pretty much what people are doing right now. But all the big social media lifters and social media stars, that's what they're doing now, but they're doing it through Instagram and other social media. And because the talent pool is growing, sports are even growing.
Yeah.
The strength sports like powerlifting with and other strength sports, what used to be impressive over 10 years ago, or even like what used to be impressive 5 years ago, in the past 2, 3 years, nobody even remembers people from 5, 10 years ago anymore. It's
It's
not
just,
as impressive as the recent 2 or 3 years. And some people either disappear or the strength standards are skyrocketing.
right.
Where people of old, like some people who were like people of 2010, some of the lifters who were like the really big names, and they're they still would be big names, but they wouldn't even be close to. In fact, people who aren't even world records of today would be stronger than the people back
Right.
then.
That's
And
right.
as far as the validation goes, let's be frank. Everyone wants to be good at their craft. Most people want to do their craft or their hobby or what they desire to do to be good at it. And not just be good at it. I mean, maybe you don't want it primarily to impress other people, or maybe you're not trying to primarily you want to be good, but you also want positive reinforcement from others. You also want that. Uh, you also want to get credit for what you put hard work into, what you put dedication into. You also want people to say good job. You also want people to congratulate you when you are do something you're proud of. So yeah, not necessarily like be attention seeking validation, but it somewhat you do want people to say, you know what, this guy, he has it going on, you know? You want people to be, I mean, every now and then. That shouldn't be the main focus. The main focus really should be quality and providing either not just mastering your craft, but if you can or have the ability to give other people quality information so they could either do what you can do or do better, you know?
Yeah. No, that's all well said. It's interesting what you said about strength, though. I remember when I first got into weight training, and I would look at all these power lifters back then, and at that point, 700 pounds was the maximum on a bench press, and there were maybe two guys in the entire world that could do that. I think
Mhm.
Ted Arcidi or Ted Arcidi. I'm totally
Yeah.
butchering his name. I think he may have been the first guy to bench press 700 pounds, and then a
Yeah.
guy named Ken. I forget his last name. Ken
Wait,
something.
what's
Yeah,
the first name? Oh, Ken Clark.
and last name I think started with an L. I forget exactly.
Oh,
He
dang.
bench pressed 70. I think Ken Lane, something like that. He bench pressed 705, and then that was, and so he beat the other guy's record by about 2 pounds. And then I think there was another guy named Anthony Clark. I think he bench
Oh,
pressed,
yeah, I remember
big
Anthony.
Samoan guy, right? He bench pressed, and he would use a reverse grip. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
He was actually stronger with the reverse grip, which is amazing. And he bench pressed over. I think he was the record holder for a little while too. But it wasn't those numbers didn't improve for a long time. But why I bring this up is I see regular guys on Instagram that bench press 700 pounds now. They're just doing it in the gym, right? There was a guy who bench pressed 700 pounds for I think 3 reps. He just banged it out.
Yeah.
It was definitely more than
So,
one rep. It might not have been three.
yeah, it was. He's the current world record holder in the bench press, and he's about to be the first, unless there's some alien out there that really is not on social media. The guy who bench pressed 700 for 3 reps is named Julius Maddox. He's
Okay,
go-
that's right.
he's he's most likely, almost 100% likely, going to be the first one to bench press 800 pounds raw without
Right.
any equipment. So
Right. Yeah, that's the other thing. These other guys who held the record, they had equipment on. So here's a guy raw who just banged it out in the gym. It's just a workout.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're right. The people that it's amazing how fast that's why it's good not to be too attached to whatever your strength is, right? You don't want to let it go to your head like, oh, I'm so strong, I'm stronger than everybody, because there are going to be, no matter how strong you are, there are going to be people that fly right by you at some point. And if it doesn't matter, like I'm not concerned about people that are stronger than me. There's a lot of people that are stronger than me. I'm not worried about that.
Yeah.
I'm always focused on being stronger than myself. That's the most important thing. How far can I push it? What are my limitations? Because if I focus on, like, look, I mean, you've deadlifted 700 pounds for reps. I couldn't do that for one rep with my life dependent on it. But that's inspirational to me. It's like, oh man, that's awesome that he did that. Maybe I can work up to that too. And even if I can't, I can get better I can beat my own records. And I think as long as you're beating your own records or you're improving in some way, it doesn't even have to be lifting more weight. Maybe you have better technique or your cardio is better.
That's the way I see it too. I mean, I personally don't, when I paid, like in my early career, when I paid attention to lifters who are better than me, I would just say, you know what? Their lifts are just something. Maybe if I achieve or not, I'll just get as close as I can. But if I don't do it, I'm not gonna lose sleep over it. I'll just try my best. And the ones who are either around my level or not, or worse than my level, I would just, if I get along with them, maybe we could just build some sort of positive community or positive,
right.
just discuss training, just help each other out, and you know what. And when it comes to, yeah, I pretty much said it. And I remember my thoughts. I was also gonna say that, yeah, even if you don't reach somebody's lift, or if you're never gonna be stronger than anybody, it's not the end of the world, because, like I said, we all have our own gift. We all have something we're better than somebody else at. So, or somebody else at. We're all better than somebody else on. So, if you're not a better lifter or not better at any lift or at anything you want to be better at somebody else, then you have other skills out there. You just have to really find those skills and work on them. But you also really have to really enjoy what you're. The thing is, you have to enjoy what you are trying to work on. If you don't enjoy it, or if you're not if you get no fulfillment doing your task, doing whatever you're working on, then it kind of, you're gonna have regrets, or you're just gonna wake up every day be like, man, do I really have to do this? I really have to do that. Which, don't get me wrong, there are some things in life you just have to do, because some things that are necessary, you have to do it anyway. But but yeah, yeah, never mind.
No, that's all well said. That's true. We're not always going to be motivated to do everything that we need to do. And sometimes we're not even going to be motivated to do the things we want to do. We all go through periods where you're just not feeling it. That happens to me sometimes with training. I mean, recently, like right now, I'm pretty positive about training. In fact, I have an elliptical machine at the house, right, which I use for interval training, and I do that 3 times a week because I want to keep my respiratory health really strong. I want to keep my endurance, my heart health on point. And I used to dread doing it. In other words, before I did it, the anticipation would be, oh God, I got to go upstairs and I got to get on this elliptical. It's so repetitive. It's boring, this and that. And then I had a paradigm shift where I said, look, you're doing something that's really positive for you. So don't look at it as a negative. Every time you do it, you should be thinking, oh, you should be excited. You should be going, man, I can't wait to do that, because every time I do it, I'm improving my heart health. I'm improving my endurance. I'm improving my mood, because even on the days where I didn't want to do it, every time I did it, I was always glad I did. Afterwards, I'd be like, man, I'm glad I did that because I feel so much better. There's a sense of accomplishment. You push through all that resistance. And honestly, now I enjoy it. I put on some good music, and the repetitiveness of it to me is actually a positive, because that gets me into a meditative state. So now I just get locked in, and those 30 minutes before I used to just look at the counter all the time. I'm like, all right, 20 more minutes to go, 10 more minutes to go, 5 more minutes to go. Great. Now I'm just cruising. I don't even think about it. I just push it as hard as I can for 30 minutes, keep a high pace. And I'm going to be doing it later today after I get off the call with you. And I look forward to it now. So, it's the only thing that changed was my mental outlook on it. That's the only thing that changed.
I mean, that's the thing. You could come into something, be like, man, I really don't want to do this. I really don't like this. I really don't like this. I'm not going to be good at it. You already close yourself off of doing it, But sometimes if you truly don't want to do something or truly don't like something, then it's not for you. But depending on how the thing is, some breakthrough could happen. Sometimes you could somehow develop a new attitude, a new way of thinking. We don't know how you'll develop a new way of thinking, but you could just somehow think, you know what? What's this I'm complaining about? Is it really this bad? Or then you'll just think of a reason to like something. And then little by little, you'll start to find a newfound appreciation for something you didn't originally like.
Yeah.
Or maybe, and that also in turn, like say you're naturally not as good at something. Like for me, I wasn't naturally a good dancer. I've been a bad dancer in my high school days and all. And I was in college just going to parties. I hated every aspect of dancing. And I was with my friends, and I really hated to dance. But
well, plus as a black man, people expect you to be able to dance.
that was the first thing.
They're waiting for you to get to parties. They're like, come on, Tobi, let's get this party going.
Exactly. Because I remember being in high school, it was like, oh, this black man can't dance, So it was like that. And then it was college. I wasn't able to dance. And then and I also, I mean, no disrespect to the people I was partying with in college, but some of them were, I mean, I liked them and all, but I wasn't having a good time partying with them.
Right.
And then when I went to vacations and partied with my brothers and sometimes even my parents joined, my family members, people I lived with my whole life, people who I actually, even since before high school, we would play on the radio, listen to music we like.
Yeah.
I mean, we would unapologetically be ourselves.
Yeah.
And we're extremely comfortable with each other. So that brought a little, that kind of loosened me up a bit. And I was still dancing like an idiot, So I didn't quite get the rhythm yet. But it took for me to really just feel the music, right? It took for me to really feel the music even more, even though I've always been into music, but I've been very heavily into music, but it took recently to the point that, okay, I can listen to this music to the extent that I take neighborhood walks and I'm always be like this and just shaking and moving, slowly getting rhythm. And because I was slowly getting rhythm with neighborhood walks, with music in my ear, I slowly became just slowly, little by little, got some sort of rhythm. And it took nearly 30 years to do it. Long story short, if you're like that where you slowly like have it in you and you slowly just have the interest and are willing to take hopefully not 30 years to do something, but maybe 5 to 10 years or 3 years, depending on how fast you learn something or how long you're willing to spend learning a new skill, even one that you're not naturally good at, then you could really do a lot,
Yeah. Well, yeah, you have to post some clips now of these dance moves.
Oh,
everybody watching wants to see that now.
Don't worry, you'll see some in the future for sure.
Oh, I can't wait. I can't wait. No, that's true though. That's really true. Sometimes it's you like I'm not someone who is like naturally a dancing type guy, but if the music is right, if I'm at and it doesn't have like I'm really into rock music, I'm really into metal, but I'm really into hip hop too. And my
Yeah,
wife and I go before the pandemic, we would go to a lot of hip hop concerts all the time. We would go to concerts where people are dancing, and then I would get into it and I would have a good time. And I don't know what I looked like doing it, but but I would have a good time with it. So I think it's sometimes it takes the right people in the right setting for you to feel it.
yeah,
Just let yourself go. Just let yourself have a good time.
that's also true. You know,
That's funny,
that's
man.
that.
That's hilarious.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I look like a big fat goof when I dance, but I like it. You know, either this is me. I mean, obviously a big bearded. I'm gonna say black guy with muscles. I already look like intimidating. I already look like a weapon by default. So
Right.
good try a little goof and goof in the mix, so you cannot always be as threatening or
Well,
serious.
well, you know what? That's a good point. And I try to do the same thing because when I'm walking around, people are often intimidated by me. Like people don't know me. They're like, oh man, look at that guy. I don't want to fuck with that dude.
I could
And
definitely.
in some ways, that's good because you don't get messed with, right? So you're not a human target. A lot of people are human targets. One of my neighbors. This guy is always walking around with headphones on, and he's looking at his phone the entire time. I go, man. Fortunately, we all live in a really good neighborhood, but that doesn't mean that you're impenetrable. It doesn't mean that it's foolproof defense. But if I were someone looking to assault someone, I would say this guy is a total target. All of his sensory is deprived. He can't hear anything. He's not looking. You could sneak up on this guy and knock him out unconscious with the before he knew anything would hit him and take everything he has. So sometimes people feel too safe. Now, when I go walk my dogs, I listen to music, but I'm looking forward. I'm not looking at my phone. I'm not distracted. And it's not because I think there might be someone out there who wants to attack me, but that's always a possibility in life. Every time I walk out the door, I think that's a possibility. So be prepared for whatever comes your way.
And so you know,
Yeah. So, but when you look a certain way, it's often a good form of self-defense that often you're not even aware of. You could be walking around and there could be people that are looking for targets, and then they may see you for a second and go, nah, not that guy. That guy looks like he can take care of himself. Let's look for an easier target. So right there, you have self-defense without even knowing it.
yeah, they see the muscle you have, they see the muscle I have. They're like, you know what? We're not gonna. If we want somebody to uh target like violently or just beat up or just to use a weapon on, it's not going to be that person because that person has muscle. He could probably fight or probably kill us or something.
Right.
Or it could even be as much as, okay, this person has height on us, so this person's
Right.
tall. So because someone is tall, they're big by default. Or it could even be like sometimes it could be the way someone looks. If somebody is sometimes if the person like is darker skinned or bearded or looks like, I mean, sometimes it's not necessarily the muscle type, but kind of has a more rugged look to them, as if they have higher testosterone.
Right.
Doesn't look like somebody they can easily beat up and be like, yep, we're not gonna bother them
Right.
sometimes.
It's so true. And the way you carry yourself makes such a difference. So if you walk with a certain swag, if you look like you have situational awareness, like I always like people often say, like, man, I know it was you from a mile away just by your walk. You walk with authority. And that's not something that's contrived. I'm not trying to do that. It just comes naturally. I mean, there probably was a time in my life where I was trying to come off a certain way, and then eventually you become that. You're not trying to come off that anymore. But where I was going with this is, I may look intimidating and I may look like, man, don't mess with that guy. That guy looks tough. But I'm really friendly to everyone I meet. I'm a cool guy with people. So when I run into people, I smile, I say hello. When people try to talk to me in the gym, I'm not like, hey, get the fuck away from me. I'll help them out if they have questions. But people are often surprised because they're like, man, I didn't expect you to be like that, because they're just looking at your austere look, and they're making their own preconceptions of what they think you're going to be like. It's not even what you're projecting necessarily, but that's what they're receiving.
Yeah. I mean, I get the same thing. Like every now and then, I would, even like in college or whatever, or even in some gyms I go to, they're like, "Oh, I can tell. I knew it was you somehow from far away, Toby, because you have a way you walk or stuff like that." And I get that the same thing you get, same stereotype you get. Also, I get that they're like, "Oh, Toby, we thought you're gonna be a complete AH. We thought you're gonna be an asshole. You look like you would be a total douche, but you're actually very nice people."
Yeah.
And I mean, like you, I'm sure you have some flaws, but we all have flaws, you
I've
know.
got plenty. Believe me, I have plenty.
I have that. Like, don't get me wrong. Don't let this gentle giant demeanor you see in these videos fool you. I have my own demons. I mean, I'm not really the insecure type, but I could be a complete prick sometimes. People who live with me, or people who knew me, or people who saw me in my worst, know that I'm not always the I mean, you won't be fond of me all the time, you know? Sometimes I could be uncharacteristically a complete jerk, you know? So, but most of the time I can really say if I'm a jerk or lash out at somebody, it's because they have a reason I have a reason for it, or I'm feeling attacked, you know? And more on wait, we were just talking about the self defense, right? I mean, walking and not being walking and not
just
having.
walking with authority and being self-aware.
Oh yeah,
Situational awareness.
Yeah, that happens to me too. I mean, nobody would. I think I already said my piece on that. So
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I mean, yeah, none of us are perfect. We all have our moments. And I think, I used to be someone that was pretty judgmental when I was younger. I would read a lot of books about people, like autobiographies, and I'd be like, God, man, how did these people screw up so badly? It's like, what were you thinking in that situation, right? And you're thinking, I'm going to learn from their mistakes. I'm not going to make these same mistakes. And then 5, 10 years later, you're making the same exact mistakes they made, and sometimes worse. You're like, man, how did I get in this situation? And it's sometimes I go, when you're really judgmental of someone, it almost puts the karma out there in the universe. Like, oh, okay, you think you would be better in that situation? Let's see what happens to you when we put you in a similar situation. So as I've gotten older and I've made plenty of mistakes, I've become less judgmental. So when I hear about something and other people are going, oh man, I can't believe that guy did it, or I can't believe she did that, these people are terrible, I go, no, there's shades of gray to this whole thing. It doesn't mean that someone's terrible just because of one act. There are people that are terrible people overall, but they have that moment where they do incredible acts of kindness for whatever reason in that one moment. And it doesn't erase everything they did before, but it just shows you the complexity of being a human being, that people that have hurt others in the most horrific ways are still capable of redemption and being healers and acts of incredible kindness. And then the flip side to that is there are people that have dedicated their lives to kindness, to helping other people, that in a certain moment, for whatever reason, commit horrific acts. So it's not as simple as that's a good person, that's a bad person. But everyone is a good person and bad person, or is capable of either one at any time. We all are.
I agree, and I personally say that, well, everybody has either done something bad in the past, or maybe still does something bad and hasn't learned, or did something bad in the past and moved past it, especially if they're sincerely sorry about it, or if they sincerely no longer are the same person they used to be. Maybe they got taught a lesson about it, which is normally the thing, which normally should happen. Like, I personally believe those who are like the ones who are doing bad things or abusive or any sort of any sort of bad person, they're the ones who should be humbled into not doing it anymore.
Right.
And as far as if somebody is good or bad, I agree. There are some people who may come across as mean, may come across as judgmental, may come across as, aloof and stuff like that. But some of those, half of those people, if they're truly, if they truly fight for, if they truly fight for other people to live in a good world or not be in a bad place, not be maltreated, not be if they really fight for the well-being of another human being, no matter, and not be discriminated against, not just racially, but for anything, or just they're really out there fighting for people's rights and stuff. I mean, yeah, they'll call them social justice warriors and stuff, but I mean, in a way, they're political correctness. We could argue the pros and cons about it, but at the same time, if you're really trying to better the way we live and really trying to make people nicer to one another, even if it's not the nicest way to do it sometimes, then in my book, you're more of a good person, because if you're really, even if you're like offensive, or even like I said, there's a different ways of there are different sides of the spectrum. Like you said, sometimes bad people do good things, good people do bad things. So I guess a little yin yang effect. So I guess if you're truly trying to make short on short, I mean, just long story short, if you're really trying to better the world, make people live in harmony more, you're more and have people's best intentions, you're more of a good person than bad. But at the same time, even those who seem to be abusive, seem to want to see the world burn, seem to just harm others, or just do everything that's wrong, they have moments where they do good acts of kindness. There are moments where they treat the few people they treat well, or maybe nobody, like family. And sometimes you never know somebody's situation or mental demon that makes somebody act a certain way. And yeah, I pretty much said enough.
No, I get what you're saying, and I get what you're coming from. I think it's just good to I mean, it's good to be hard on yourself when you screw up, because you should be hard on yourself. But then at some point you got to let go of the guilt, and you got to just use it to become a better person. You go, look, I screwed up. I screwed up really badly. And I'm not trying to deny that. I'm not trying to rationalize that. I'm going to own that. But what am I supposed to do? Just torture myself for the rest of my life, or just penalize myself, or say I'm not worthy of happiness or being a good person? That's not good for you or anyone else. So at some point, you have to let that guilt go. I always say guilt and jealousy are totally wasted emotions, because jealousy is a wasted emotion. Because if you wanted, there's no point being jealous of what someone else has, because if you really wanted that, you'd be out there trying to achieve it. So there's no point being jealous. And then guilt is a waste of time too, because it doesn't make you feel better, and it doesn't make the other person feel better. It doesn't make the situation better unless you actually use it in a proactive way at some point. So you got to let those things go. But I think it's also good not to be judgmental. And this is something I've gotten a lot better at, because sometimes I would just look at people in certain situations and just be like, oh, I'm so much better than these people. I would never screw up that badly. But you don't know what you would do if you had the same exact experiences as that person, right? Their childhood, whatever they went through, good and bad, and then they're in that situation. You don't know for sure if you would act any differently than they did. And I'm talking about the most horrific people in society, going like, I would never be like that. But you don't know if you went through every single thing that they've gone through, same exact experiences and upbringing, you don't know for sure that you would act any differently. And as a result of that, it allows you to pull back a little bit and not be so judgmental. I'm not saying that we should excuse behavior that's really cruel, like cruelty. I'm not saying that at all. But what I am trying to say is that don't think you're so much better than everyone else is where I'm going. Don't think that you're so above everyone else, because if someone else may be just like you, if they were in your situation, like you think you're such a great person, okay, maybe someone else who isn't a great person would be a great person if they went through everything you went through. They had the same parents, the same upbringing, the same opportunities. So just as someone is capable of a lot more given the right circumstances, a lot of us are capable of acts of evil. And there's a book I read called The Lucifer Effect, right? This is one of my favorite. It's not one of my favorite books because it's a really unpleasant read, but it's a very introspective book. What's
Probably
that?
a book that explains a lot. So
Yeah.
it'll
Yeah.
probably be in a list of books I would read if I remember to.
Oh, you've read it. Okay. You've read The Lucifer
I mean, I
Effect?
haven't read it, but I said it would probably be in a list of books to read if I read it, because I think I heard of that book once or twice.
Yeah.
So
I referenced it in my book.
I haven't done a lot of reading in a while because, number one, I've been searching on career stuff, and number two, been doing a lot with my social media stuff in my online coaching and everything, even online tutoring sometimes, but online coaching. That once I slow the social media down, especially like when you do it, then everything else in life comes into place. I'll go back to my reading.
Right. Right. I hear you. Hey, can you move the phone? Yeah, there we go. Right there. Yeah, right there. Perfect.
My arm was just getting tired. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. Is there something you can prop up the phone on? Because that way you don't have to hold it the whole time.
Don't worry. I'm just wait. I think I could just.
Yeah, if you put like maybe a glass behind it or a book or something, maybe you could prop it up so you don't, because it's going to get tiring holding it the whole time.
I just have to just hold on.
Yeah, I use one of those little tripods when I record clips on my phone. So that because before I used to hold it the whole time.
Okay, so okay.
Yeah, looks like you're making the same setup I use to prop up my computer when I record. I've got 5 books in my lap, my laptop on top of it.
bootleg tripod.
Yeah. There we go. There we go. Perfect. Yeah, that's perfect. And now you can have your hands free because that's going to get old after a while. You're like, all right. You can bust out those dance moves now because you're free.
Do it with no hand.
There we go. Yeah, that's good. That's good.
Food.
And let's see if you could move. Well, there we go. That's actually pretty good. I was going to say move your chair over to your right, but I think you're okay right now.
Okay, I'm
sorry the other way.
I got it.
There we go. There we go. Yeah. Perfect. Yeah, man. So that Lucifer effect is really good. But the main point the author makes is that it's basically all of the things that have to line up for incredible acts of evil to happen. And the point that's most disturbing in this book for first-time readers is he says, look, you, the reader, everyone else in the world, you're all capable. All these horrific acts I'm talking about in this book, everybody reading it is capable of those things if all of these outside forces line up in a way. And when one of the worst examples is what happened in Rwanda, where 900,000 people were butchered in less than 90 days.
Oh, wow.
And these are people that used to live with each other. There were these 2 different tribes where they lived peacefully. And then over a period of time, they started turning on each other. First, there was a lot of negative rhetoric in the media, and then it escalated. And it escalated into the worst genocide in the last 30 years, 40 years. And it was just as horrific, if not way more horrific than what happened in Auschwitz. So I'm not trying to say one's better than the other. They're both horrific. But we don't hear about the one in Rwanda as much because it was people in Africa. They're not deemed as important. So it's like, well, if 900,000 Africans kill each other, no big thing. But the reality is that, I mean, this was a teachable moment, to say the least, in that we could see how quickly things could escalate. Now, people look at that and go, well, that couldn't happen in America. It could definitely happen in America. And it could happen a lot faster in America because America is a heavily armed country. So imagine these are 900,000 people that didn't have guns. These are 900,000 people that had machetes and knives and whatever other, killed each other with their bare hands. Imagine if millions of people went to war in America and they're all armed. It could be 10 times, it could be 9 million people that are butchered in 90 days.
We're kind of seeing this happen in America, especially with the school shootings,
right?
The shootings, the theater shootings, even the what's it called? Sometimes when the riots happen, when it comes to police and stuff, and also like we saw what happened with the insurrection, the White House, and I'm just gonna leave it there when it comes to that. But I'm just gonna say like it's more of stuff like that happening, or the shootings that happen either because of mental illness or either because of they want to have an attack against humanity, or some like maybe mosque shootings or synagogue shootings or whatever. It's also like Dylan Roof situation where he shot a black church. So sometimes, I mean, quote unquote, our way of doing it is just having all these shootings because we're a gun crazy place. And then some of it is also political, like when Trump is causing his supporters to commit violence, and then when a black person is killed by a policeman, it's normally black and black, not even all black people, but people who are tired of black people being killed, and they face the police. And in general, a lot of the police would be Trump people who are like, you know what, some of them have no remorse and stuff. And if some of the black people, if some of the police have remorse, then like the ones who don't like what's been happening since the beginning of time, really, it's been police versus black people sometimes. Not to say all police, but and if a policeman, whether it's white, black, whatever, speaks out against it, they're the ones who get threatened, they get in trouble, they have to be forced to leave or be forced for their life. So I guess other countries have ways of having this crazy, crazy atrocity, but I'm not in other countries. I don't know how to say it. Doesn't make it better or worse. And the Rwanda situation, uh, I believe there was a movie called Hotel Rwanda.
Yeah.
I I don't know if it was about that.
It was. Yeah, it was.
And I think Don Cheadle was one of the main actors. I mean, I have the DVD, but I never watched the movie.
It's a good movie. It's worth watching. It's heavy, but it's not so heavy that it's a real difficult watch. I mean, don't get me wrong. It definitely depicts the situation, but it's not so disturbing that you're just left traumatized. Let me put it that way. That movie could have been way more graphic than it was, is where I'm going. And I think there have been other movies that were, but this movie was more from the narrative of one person that was trying to help as many people as possible. So it's an uplifting story.
Yeah, I'll definitely watch it one of those days.
Yeah, you have to be in the right mainframe. You have to be in the right mindset for movies like that. Sometimes people send me these movies. I'm like, this movie looks good, but I don't know if I want to watch it right now.
Yeah, I could watch most movies like that. Like I even watched Schindler's List, which was a sad, crazy movie. I could watch most of these movies because I know it's acting. But if it's a documentary or if it's in the news and I see like, I don't even want to say it, but
yeah,
and I see something too graphic, I'll be like, no, it's not for me because I know it actually happened, and I don't want to see pictures and videos of that. It's creepy, but and yeah, I guess you got my point when it comes to that. So
definitely.
I'll just end it. there when it comes to the topic of police brutality and everything else and all.
Right. Well, we can make a big pivot here and go in a totally different direction. We can talk about training a little bit. I wanted to get your take on using accommodating resistance, right? Things like chains, things like resistance bands. Do you have experience with such things? And if so, do you find it useful in some capacity?
Oh, honestly, I've toyed with it here and there, but not as long as I would like to. But I can tell you, definitely worked, and I played with it. I personally think like chains, resistance band, all of that, they should be used like when you're at least an intermediate. I
Right.
personally think what beginners should do, they just have to get the form down of the exercises.
Right.
They just have to spend enough time doing the exercise, mastering the form, and getting stronger and learning everything about training. They just have to just get the basics down. And then once you're in the intermediate or even advanced progress where you're stalling a bit and you learned everything about training and your form is passable, you're always going to learn more about form as you go. You're always going to learn more about training as you go. But if you need like new spice to your training and you got the form and training methods down, you could use chains and bands. What I've done, I've I haven't done much with chains, but I'm sure people could do them better than I can. But I've done chains before. But what I've really done are reverse bands. And bands help too because bands are also like chains. But maybe bands also have more resistance because sometimes chains have a resistance, especially when you come up and out of the hole of the rep, or when chains are lightest in the bottom, and then from bottom to top, the reps get heavy when you use chains.
Right.
And when you use bands against the weight, whether you deadlift, whether you bench, whether you squat, or even overhead press, the reps get heavy as you come up. But I haven't done much bands against the weight unless I'm deadlifting, and maybe once or twice when I squat or bench or even chains. I use chains once or twice when I squat, when I deadlift, when I bench and stuff. But what I've done is reverse bands. Reverse bands for bench would help because you're overloading with heavy weight and the weight is lighter at the bottom, but it's also like using a Mark Bell slingshot, which
Right.
which is a good investment and good investment if you have shoulder and pec problems. It
Right.
you bench if you have injuries in the shoulders and pecs, and it's not expensive whatsoever. If not, then if you don't have injuries there, then reverse bands could help when you bench. If not, then I use reverse band. I tried with. I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm here. No, I didn't say anything.
Uh, if anything, I've also done reverse bands when I squat and when I deadlifted. Deadlift, I would do like heavy reps, maybe even super heavy reps for uh for like maybe a top set or something, and then that's like an overload, and then like for example, when I was on my way to getting close to that 800-pound raw deadlift, when I got to that 750 for 2 reps, my deadlift was getting bigger because I was having one day of doing reverse band deadlifts and another day of doing regular deadlifts.
Right.
The reverse band deadlift day, I was doing whatever weight in my head and just doing a top set of reverse band, and that would be it. And then reverse band make feet off the ground easy because it's lighter off the ground and you're basically just locking out the weight. and it makes it easier on the grip automatically, and it makes it easier to rep the weights because it's automatically lighter on the bottom. And then with squat, right? I've done reverse band front squats and reverse band back squats, and for reverse band, the weight on my back felt a lot lighter. Sometimes squat on your back feels heavy, depending on the person, but for most people. And I was holding the weight for the squat, reverse band, even if it's reverse band heavy weight, same weight or heavier weight that I normally use. Uh, it doesn't feel heavy at all. It feels like at least 100 pounds lighter, even though it's not 100 pounds lighter.
Right.
And you feel it and makes the rep a lot easier. And it's essentially the same weight at the top almost. And at the bottom, it's easy. So that's pretty much my experience.
Got it. Now with I mean I've been using these mini bands on deadlifts, as people can see on my Instagram feed.
I
So what I'm
see.
doing is I'd use those one day, then a couple days later I do deadlift, just regular deadlifts without any kind of accommodating resistance, no chains, no bands. What I find with bands is I get a lot of forced acceleration, meaning that when I deadlift without the bands, the bar really flies off the ground. And I know that, and I found this with resistance bands for overhead presses as well. I used to use a TNT cable from Lifetime or Lifeline, and I used that to improve my kettlebell overhead pressing because I would stand on the bands and I could hold it like two kettlebells, and it was the
Yeah.
same. It's much heavier at the top, lighter at the bottom. So you learn how to really accelerate all the way through. And sometimes I would use just the resistance bands for a month. And then when I went back to kettlebells, the bells would just fly overhead. I mean, they felt like hot air balloons. They would just fly so fast overhead. So I'm getting a similar effect with deadlifts right now. And what I'm doing right now is I'm working on repetition goals with deadlifts too. So I have a goal of 5 plates for 10 reps. And I'm not chasing one rep maxes right now. So the
I
first week
think
what I do is I do 2 sets of 3 with the same weight. And then on the third set, I see how many reps I can do. And I don't go to failure, but I get fairly close to it. So the first week I did 2 sets of 3 with 425. And then on the third set, I did 10 reps. And it felt great. And I just flew through it. I'm like, okay, this is good. So then week 2, last week, I went up to 445. And I did 9 reps pretty easily. Could have kept going, but I wanted to leave some in the bank. And it felt really smooth, felt really good. In other words, it was 9 reps without stopping. I didn't have to stop, reset. It was just bam, 9 reps. Now this week, tomorrow, I'll do 465. And let's see if I get 8 to 9 reps. That'd be great. Let's see how that goes. But again, I don't want to train to failure here. I'm just conditioning myself to build reps so that when I get to the 5 plates, I'm ready to go. I'm not burned out. Because if I do a maximum set every single time, I'm going to be burned out by the time I get to where I want to go. So right now, I'm just building up the base. So it'd be
yeah.
465 this week, 485 next week, and then 505. And if everything lines up the way I wanted to, 505 should be a pretty easy 6. And then at that point I'll do a deload week, and then I'll try that 495, for 10 reps. But it's nice to work on different things, because before I was always chasing maximum 1 rep, and I will do that again at some point this year, maybe not, we'll see. But right now, my body's actually responds better to reps. In other words, I'm more slow twitch than fast twitch, which is surprising to people who look at my abilities, but that's the strength has been built up over time. Endurance actually comes to me naturally. That's something I'm naturally good at. So I can build my 10 rep max faster than I can my 1 rep max, is where I'm trying to go. So it's just an interesting experiment to see how I'm doing. But on the day with the bands, I'll also do 2 sets of 3, obviously much lighter weight because I'm using the bands as additional resistance. And then on the third set, I'll do 5. Now, if I complete 5, I move up 10 pounds for the next workout. If I don't complete 5, then I just stay there, because I don't want to burn myself out with the deadlifts with the bands either, because that takes away from the other goal. So it's just knowing when to do what and how to do it.
I mean, I believe you can do it, and I agree. And I personally think when it comes to reps and 1 rep max, they coexist. As in,
Right.
when you build reps, whether it's 5 reps, 10 reps, 8 reps, 9 reps, even 20 reps.
Right.
The reps will give you more practice with the exercise, because when you do a rep of an exercise, you're essentially like, a rep is how much practice you're getting doing an exercise, and the more reps you do of an exercise, the more practice you get doing an exercise,
Right.
and that's the more time spent doing an exercise. And that would essentially build muscle on the exercise, and doing it and using the exercise, whether it's reps or low reps, you're building the muscles for that exercise.
Right.
And building the muscles for that exercise is gonna just get you strong at the exercise.
Right.
And as far as you doing 495 for 10, I believe it's most likely doable. And if it's not doable this long cycle, then you could probably do it the next cycle. Or if not the next cycle, then however long it takes or you're willing to spend on it. Because this is my philosophy with most things, or in weight, or even not weight. The end result is already there if you're willing to. I mean, unless there are other realistic factors that would prevent you from getting it. But for most people who are willing and able, then don't have those unrealistic factors that won't uh, make them get it, the end result is there already. You just have to do the journey. You just have to spend however long it takes. Have to spend however long it takes to be able to. You just have to do it as long, spend however long. Come on, damn it. And however long it takes to get to that end destination.
That's
And
right.
if you don't get it, then it's okay. It's just a matter of you tried your best, and not everyone will achieve everything.
Yeah, well, I
And
mean, the way I look at it is, I mean, I've done 6 reps before with 495, and I could have kept going. I just stopped at 6. So I think I was probably good for 8 on that day I did 6. So I know, I mean, I could probably do it right now. It's more you got to get your mind right. I could probably go into the gym and do it today if my mind is right. And the whole point of training practice is to get your mind right, because once your mind is right, the body follows. But I'm also someone who wants to take my time with stuff. It's not like I have to do it. Like, look, I mean, like, look, if I don't achieve it this week, it's not like I'm not going to be able to pay my mortgage or the earth is crumble. Nothing is going to improve or not improve in my life, whether I achieve this goal or not. Meaning my life's not going to get better as a result of achieving this. It's not going to get worse as a result of not achieving it. So you got to put it in the right perspective. These are fun things. I train for fun. I'm not a competitive powerlifter. I just do this because it's fun. I like adversity and I like to challenge myself. And I think those of us that push ourselves physically, the real benefit of pushing yourself physically is not even the act of pushing yourself physically. It's knowing that you can. It's knowing that you can put yourself in adversity and stay there and fight there. Because most people, when they face adversity, they crumble, they crash, they fall. They can't handle the resistance. But those of us that push ourselves really hard physically, mentally, we have a blueprint now. Hey, I can handle adversity. Adversity comes my way, I can handle it because I've pushed myself to my limits physically. I know what I'm capable of. And that to me is the real benefit of all of it.
yeah, like I said, like you said, it's best to be patient. When it comes to achieving any goal, it doesn't matter if you do it now, next week, or however long. Just it's best to be patient. And I think it's smartest that you didn't do it that when you had 6, when you could have done like 8. It's smartest to stop at 6, because it's best to do it when you know for sure it's the
Right.
right time to do something. Don't rush into doing anything.
Yeah.
And uh, pretty much. And everything else you said is correct.
Well,
Anyway.
the thing also is with 6, that was more than I'd ever done before. The most I'd done before was 5 before that. So 6 is that's it. That's a PR, even though I was capable of more. So what? Leave some in the bank, come back next time.
Yeah.
Now, let's say this time around I get 7 and that's it. hey, it's not 10, but it's still better than 6, right? So you're progressing in the right direction. You get 7 or 8, you're only 2 reps away now. I mean, it's just right around the corner. So it's right there. You just have to put in the work, because see, I don't want to just do it. I want it to look good when I do it. So when I do 10 reps, I don't want people to be like, man, first 5 reps looked pretty good and it got ugly after that, but good work pushing through. I want it to look good from rep 1 to rep 10.
Yeah, every small ounce of progress anyway. Just quit while you're ahead. That's what I would like to say,
Right. Right, exactly. Like, leave with the victory is what I want. That's why
Yep.
if you push yourself so hard, now you can't come back the next day and improve further. Now you have to rest up a bit. And sometimes that's good. Sometimes you want to push yourself really hard, knowing that you're going to rest maybe for a week or a couple days. You know that going in, and that's fine. But when you're in the building phase, like I always say, there's demonstrating strength and then there's actually building strength, and they're two different things. When you're doing maximum efforts, that's demonstrating strength, and you can only do that so often until it has diminishing returns. Now, when you're building strength, though, it's more you're getting your technique dialed in, you're getting your mind right, you're getting your central nervous system dialed in. You're doing all of you're focusing more on practice, getting good at the skill of what you're trying to improve. And the more often you do that, the better you get at it. But you can't do it often if you're pushing the intensity too high. So that's the balance you have to find. And it's for those of us who like to push ourselves, it takes a lot of discipline to dial it back, because you always want to do more. You're like, man, I want to see how far I can go. And you can only do that so often without burning out or getting injured. That's the other thing. I'm 47 too. I'm not 25 anymore lifting weights. I've been working out for a long time, and I don't want to get injured. I don't want any injury whatsoever from working out, because I don't need that. I'm not in that. That doesn't do any benefit for me. So not every injury is 100% avoidable, but you can definitely stack the deck in your favor of avoiding most injuries by training intelligently.
Yeah, I agree.
So, go ahead.
No, I said I totally agree.
So, last thing is, let's pivot one more time. Let's talk about this bullying a little bit, because here's what I wanted to get. Let me just mark that as red. Okay. So I think a lot of us get into physical training because we did experience bullying, because we experienced some kind of adversity on that front. I know I definitely did, because I was a skinny kid in high school. I wasn't an athlete. I didn't play sports. I was really into metal and punk rock and hardcore. So I had these long dreadlocks and I had my ears pierced, and I'm going to concerts. That was my thing. And I was drinking a lot. I was doing a lot of substance abuse. I was just in this kind of destructive wild state.
So
yeah. So I definitely got bullied. And now the kids that are like the way I was then, now they're like the coolest kids in school. But back then, I mean, you could get your ass kicked for looking a certain way. You'd be walking home and a car full of jocks would drive by and the tires screech, and then 4 guys jump out, then with malicious intent. That was something that you experienced often. So you either had to get really good at running and jumping over fences, or I used to carry a billy club with me, and sometimes just taking that out, they'd be like, okay, forget it. Because my attitude was like, look, you 4 guys are going to beat my ass. That's going to happen. But I've got a club in my hand, so I'm going to hurt somebody. One of you guys is going to get hurt real bad out of this whole thing. So you guys decide which one it's going to be. And sometimes that was enough of a deterrent that people would move on. But I got to a point where I said, you know what? Now, obviously, I could have just cut my hair and dressed differently. Okay, that would have been the easy approach.
You weren't being true to yourself if you did.
Exactly. So. I didn't want to do that. So then I go, let me get into martial arts and let me get into physical training, because if I put on 20, 30 pounds of muscle, I'm going to be less of a target. And that was definitely the motivation.
Yeah. I would say for you, like martial arts, putting on the weight to it have been self-defense. Like nobody would mess with you, and then it's something you are eventually grown to love doing.
Right.
These are my humble beginnings. I mean, ever since I really knew anything about life, which I was just a normal kid, I didn't know much about anything until I was just living normal kid stuff until I guess maybe I was 4 years old, right? 4-year-old kid. playing a computer game, and then it was like, you know what? And it was like an educational computer game. And growing up with in a Nigerian family with Nigerian parents, we were just as Nigerian immigrants. We were the kids who are just here to succeed in school, become successful, and have like good jobs, good family, and all that. Just success. So when I was 4 years old, I was playing my older brother's computer game. My older brother, who was like in first grade, he was playing like a third or fourth grade mathematical grade game by like an academic company for the computer. It was called Math Blaster or something, Space Blaster, one of them.
Yeah.
But I was playing it and I was having so much fun playing the game. But knowing that I was having fun, I did not know that I was actually the fun I was having is that I was able to understand math. The fun I was actually having is me learning addition, no, I'm not talking. Me learning addition, subtraction, multiplication, division.
Yeah.
So by the time I was already beating the game, I was already that preschooler knowing the whole multiplication table and knowing all my computation. And then fast forward to church to first grade. I was that dude just doing math books for fun. I was doing sixth grade math books, even to the extent that I was in second grade doing eighth grade pre-algebra math book. And I was doing math books for fun. I was known as Math Whiz, Human Calculator, blah blah blah. All right, so since then I always wanted to be the best at something, and I just wanted to be the best at the schoolwork. That was my only job, and be a kid. So I remember I was in first grade, my old neighborhood in first grade. One neighborhood kid, I was just someone in my bus, someone who wasn't even bigger than me. He was a classmate, but he wasn't very nice to me most of the time, but he was a classmate. He pushed my bike in some dog, doo doo. And then I didn't like how my bike got violated, so I was crying about it. And I didn't necessarily want to hit the kid either. And then my mom was like, "Oh, what are you crying for? Why are you doing this? Stand up for yourself and stuff like that." Not necessarily hit him, but at least tell him, "Hey, man, I don't like what you did." Instead of just let it happen. Don't let people disrespect you.
Right.
And then I just thought about that since that day. And then my mom was this was like back in like 1998. And then what's it called? My mom, I mean, actually not even 1998, like 1999 even. So then my mom was finishing her Billy Banks tape, Tybo tape.
Yeah.
I was like, this dude looks like he could really beat somebody up. So I was like, oh, this is kind of what I want. And then I remember for some reason, I don't know how I thought about this. Maybe it's some sort of divine intervention, but I was picturing, and it was also around the time Ronnie Coleman was, I didn't even know what bodybuilding was, but it was around the time Ronnie Coleman was Mr. Olympia. But somehow I was imagining just a big, black, overly hulking, roided creature like Ronnie Coleman was. And except I didn't even know it was bodybuilding. I just thought it was like cartoonish to look like that, like Looney Tunes, Tom and Jerry, those Tex Avery, Droopy cartoons. Just like, just basically like this. So I was looking like, but it was like Ronnie Coleman esque. And I was imagining myself looking like that, and then I'll go to the same kid who pushed my bike in dog crap in class. I was like, I'll just point it on his shoulder. He'll turn his head around, and then he will look at me from head to toe and be like, his jaw would drop and eyes pop out, and then bam. That's what I was imagining. Not that fast forward, I wasn't actually gonna do that, but since then, right? It was like, all right, second grade, I'm in a new town, new neighborhood. Second grade to all through schooling, second grade through eighth grade. I was just somebody who wanted to, I mean, not that I knew how to work out, but I was somebody who was picking up every time we went to Sears, even since I was in second grade, I was picking up two 50-pound dumbbells from the dumbbell rack and saying I was holding 100 pounds. I was doing my mom's exercise bike. I was doing her like 8-pound dumbbells as curls while watching TV. And I I was not every day, but some days. And that was like my early child years. And I was somebody who, I mean, starting out maybe my child to adolescent years, I was on the husky, taller side, even though I wasn't strong by any means necessary. But I was bigger than most of my classmates. And I wasn't a bully by any means either. But I was somebody who didn't also, even since second grade, I was somebody who didn't want to be beaten up by other kids. I didn't want people to beat up my brothers. I didn't want people to beat up my friends. I didn't even want people. I mean, no, it wouldn't have happened to my parents, but I didn't want people. Not that my parents were big and strong, but they're not in that situation much. But
Right.
I wouldn't want. And I'm a kid. I don't hang out with adults unless I'm waiting for them when it comes to work, and then the adults will ask, "Oh, what are you studying?" But anyway, I was just I just didn't want anyone to beat me up or anybody else I cared about. And then as far as the bullying I got, it was just like, you know what? Sometimes, even like second grade to eighth grade, I wasn't that. I had friends and all sometimes, but sometimes I'm most of the time actually from second grade to eighth grade. I would say I was only invited to like two birthday parties, and people who I thought were my friends or considered my friends didn't invite me to anything. So I was like, man. And but most of the time I was treated well there. But then because I at least had people. But a lot of so quote unquote bullying kind of happened in high school anyway. So where I would just know nobody, my reputation would not be there because I knew nobody, and I had to like remake a reputation. I was in a school where it was mostly, I'd say predominantly white, Italian, and Irish. It was a Catholic school. It used to be a public school I went to all my life, and I knew nobody. And I was the only black kid in my grade. I mean, one of the only black kids. The other black kid played sports, and he was the strongest kid in my grade, one of the strongest kids in the whole school.
Yeah.
So nobody messed with him. And me, I started high school freshman year being 5'9". I was pretty tall. I was 150 pounds. People in the beginning, people heard of me. People thought I would be. They heard I was pretty strong. They heard I was smart, so they assumed I was strong and smart. So when they found out I wasn't very strong and I wasn't very popular, all of a sudden, so that's where like the maltreatment happened and then started. And 10th grade, I would say that's where more of the harassment started. Uh, I
Right.
mean, I no longer became skinny because of growth spurt. I got to like 5'10", 190 pounds beginning of 10th grade because of puberty, and I was eating a lot.
Yeah.
So I went from skinny and cutish to like still cutish, but just not skinny, but not fat either. But I was just like us, blocky. And people who didn't know better thought I was just pretty big. But at the same time, people knew I was stronger than they think they thought. But only because many people in my school didn't even lift or weren't that strong. The non-athletic kids. But the ones who were stronger than me, even up to like senior year of high school, were the kids like football players, lacrosse players, baseball players, or kids who actually worked out. They weren't necessarily bigger than me, but they were bench pressing more. And my bench press was always on the weaker side. And some people thought I was stronger than they thought. Some people thought I was weak until I played like maybe those high school games with them where I was like some hitting games where it was like rock, paper, scissors, shoot. And then the winner, you hit them with a fist or scissors or a hand for rock, paper, scissors. And number one, I was able to take a lot of hits, even from that strong black guy in my grade. And everyone else, I hit very hard on them. So they were like, okay, he's
Yeah.
not that weak. But at the same time, I wasn't very popular. So nobody was inviting me anywhere. I never went on a Sweet 16, even though I wasn't really bad with the ladies either, but I wasn't because it was not cool to invite Toby anywhere. And people weren't really the nicest towards me or favored me. And also, but because I got so big, almost nobody, not the biggest, but because I was bigger than most of my classmates, beating me up wasn't a problem. No one wanted to beat me up. But doesn't mean everybody. There is like one or two kids who are actually big and strong. Like one of them I knew on a personal level who had like major anger management problems. He he was someone I was trying not to fight. So he was someone I was trying not to fight. So he was like so I was just avoiding him, and I'll just get berated by him on a daily basis. So I'll just try not to anger him. And then somebody else on the football team who kind of was a bully. He was a bully to me, and
Yeah.
he tried to like number one, cutting me in line, but and disrespecting me. And then he was like, "Oh, I could physically cut you." And then I was like, "Well, you are bigger than me." So nothing I could have done about it. I
Right.
was I had to take his. He had anger problems too. That other guy. I had to
Right.
take disrespect, and nothing I could do about it. And then when I was in the weight room in high school, many times he disrespected me, and many others disrespected me. And then some of the others disrespected me. And then long story short, it got to a point where I was I finally got to the weight room in calisthenics and stuff when I was like I mean I was already working out for like I was working out since eighth grade on a serious level with doing just chin ups and sit ups in eighth grade, like end of eighth grade, and ninth and 10th grade. Barely I was just doing machines and arms and football workouts. In 10th grade, I in ninth and 10th grade, I was really just doing a lot of computer research on how to train until I found calisthenics. And I was even asking some people on what they were doing, but nobody wanted to tell me anything, which would have been a better idea anyway because it's more ineffective based on what I know now. I know more than they did then.
Yeah.
And also, there was this one football coach back then. All the rest of the football coaches were supportive, but this one other, he one time I wanted to lift A lot of football kids, they didn't even care about lifting. They only lifted for football, and then they stopped. And then, or some maintained. But to the extent that if more than half of them continued and obsessed with it like I did, they would be stronger than me. Maybe close to me or stronger than me on deadlifts, but they would be stronger than me on every lift. But I guess life is better for them, as they would say, so good for them. But anyway, one of the coaches, I was like, "Oh, can I come?" He was like, "Oh, football is not. There's no lifting for football. No, you can't come." So, and he pretty much said the same thing when school was ending, and I wanted to lift the first day of summer off-season football. He was like, "Oh, you cannot, you cannot, you cannot come because, well, I didn't play. I was on the team, so I cannot lift with them." And I was like, "All right, fine." So that's where I was like, you know what? Forget these fools. I'm just gonna do more research. If if I can't lift in the summer, I'm not gonna deal with this crap I've been dealing with for the past 2 years. I'm gonna do calisthenics. If I did calisthenics for a year, then it got real results. Got really one of the big, strong kids in my grade. Actually looked better than most of them. And then it got to the point where I was a senior. I got my license. I got into college. People knew I was for real. I uh, I started the powerlifting training because it was halfway through senior year, and then the same people who thought I was crap. Not all of them. I didn't see everyone yet, but same people in the school who thought I was crap just started to take me seriously. And even some people in my old school back then, they saw me again. They're like, "Wow, what happened to the old Toby? You like ate the old Toby."
Yeah.
And I mean, it was good to hear. But and some people were blindsided by this because I was pretty much as quiet, smart, and some who knew me like funny kid, which I was still all those things. I was just all those things who lifted weights. And and only I mean I kept the lifting weights thing on the low because either way, when I was in like seventh grade-ish, eighth grade, I was into like watching WWE. I was reading bodybuilding magazines, and not everyone knew that about me in middle school. But and I did do some I did do some arm wrestling and some hitting games with the rest of the students in middle school. But most people who didn't know me that well and weren't in my classes wouldn't have known. But and then it got to a point where some people who were older than me and treated me like crap, they saw how muscular I was getting and stuff. They started to say, okay, they started to take me seriously.
Right.
And also, even got to a point where many more were starting to take me seriously because even many of them were like, okay, uh, we like one of them who was like, who kind of looked down on me, talked down to me, but I wasn't the only one he did it to. He did it to everybody, almost everybody. He had anger problems. He just reached out to me years later, saw my work. He was like, "Oh, I always knew you were strong and stuff." And then I kept it in my head. I was like, you know. So anyway, and also, um, even the strongest kid in my grade, who was a black kid, he saw my 650-pound deadlift from years ago. He liked that video, so he start to take me a little seriously himself. So even though we didn't have that much problems, but he was another cocky kid anyway. So
Right.
and he was, and of course, when you're in high school, you're young, you're cocky, you think you can make the NFL. If something happens to
Right.
you, and you get a deflated ego because you're on top of your game. You haven't learned to be humble. So
Right.
I guess that's pretty much the clips of it. Unless you have any more questions
No,
or anything else you want me to like touch up on.
no, I don't think so. I think you you went into pretty good detail there on your experiences, and I think that's relatable to a lot of people. We can go ahead and wrap up. I don't want to keep you on all day long, but are you still designing programs for people? What are you doing right now?
I'm still designing programs for people.
Yeah, so if people want to find out about your services, how can they do that? Where can they go?
They could go to my Instagram at Tobi _Alder _strength _coach, or they could go to my website, tobistrength.com, or they could just send me an email at TALDER123 @gmail.com.
Excellent. Well, hey, man, this was awesome. Great conversation as always, and all the best to you. So let me just go ahead and stop recording.
All right.